Welcome to our latest video on motor preferences in baseball. In this video, we will discuss how trying to change Tim Lincecum's mechanics outside his natural motor preferences in an effort to improve or fix them, led to failure and most likely created a severe hip injury. It's important to note that I have not personally met Tim Lincecum, nor have I spoken to him or anyone who has worked with him. My information about him comes solely from researching online sources. Despite not being able to profile him in person, I am confident that I have a good understanding of which motor skill group he belongs to, particularly focusing on his early years from 2006 to 2011 when he was healthy and durable. Before going further, it is important to understand a couple of key things about Tim Lincecum's motor preferences. He is a posterior muscle chain athlete with a high mobile point. This means that he is asymmetric in his movement pattern, placing weight primarily on his forefoot, dissociating his shoulders and hips in his movements, accelerating from his shoulders, may compensate for hip anteversion with knee recurvatum, tends to move in a nonlinear, wave-like manner, drops his shoulder to unweight his legs, is sensitive to rhythm in his movements, seamlessly blends global and fine motor skills, enjoys incorporating rotation in his movements, and tends to engage his left side first in the action. These are the key characteristics of this motor skill group of athletes. Now, let us take a closer look at a couple of issues from a motor preferences standpoint. He exhibited strong posterior control in his movements. His center of gravity was slightly in front. It is important to note that there is a significant difference between the way Tim Lincecum moved in 2009 compared to 2013, specifically in the observation phase. In 2009, his weight was forward, which allowed him to move in a way that was natural for his body and motor preferences. However, in 2013, he had his weight on his heels and was forced to move as an anterior muscle chain athlete, which is completely opposite of how his body is built to move. Another characteristic of his motor skill group is that he exhibited strong posterior control in his movements. His center of gravity was slightly in front, and he dropped his throwing shoulder towards the hip of the same side of the body, leaning on the back plane of the movement. In 2013, his shoulders were squared with the ground, which is counterproductive for his natural way of moving. It is also very important to understand that Tim Lincecum exhibited nonlinear movement, characterized by waves in his motion. He had a natural tendency to manipulate his right near and left far, and had a left thigh strategy, consistently engaging his left side first in action. There was also a diagonal organization between his right shoulder and left knee, and due to his great flexibility in movements, he had extra leverage, as you can see on the picture from 2009. However, after 2012, he began to move differently, deviating from these natural tendencies, which led to problems with velocity and command, and ultimately resulting in a severe hip injury. Individuals, such as Tim Lincecum, are able to place more weight on their left leg and has a larger external rotation on that side. They must also be able to maintain that weight while waiting to find the best positioning for their right side as soon as the information is perceived. This dynamic balance is achieved by allowing the body to create an asymmetry on its right side. In order to achieve this, it is essential to find the correct level of abdominal tonicity to maintain internal organ stability and control hip movement, thus avoiding an anteversion flip when the sternum moves upward. Additionally, cross-lateral and rotational movements, such as the separate movement of the shoulders, elbows, and hips, are also important. Furthermore, the individual's movement should feature a vertical sequence of movements with an added horizontal sequence at the shoulder level. This results in a figure 8 movement of the shoulders, which is not commonly seen in other motor styles. Before 2012, his body and limbs operated independently of each other, which looks fluttery in full motion, which allowed to put more weight on his left leg with larger external rotation on the left side. You can also see from the pictures that there is a significant difference in the release point, which ultimately did not work to Tim's advantage. As you can see in this frame-by-frame comparison from 2009 and 2013, taken at the exact same time in the deceleration phase, there are major differences. In 2009, you can see the result of all the components we previously mentioned, such as asymmetry on the left with the staggered posture and rotation of the spine, and the weight on the outer front part of the left foot. The key is to find the right abdominal tonicity to maintain internal organ stability and control hip movement, avoiding an anteversion flip when the sternum moves upward. You can also see that there is low activation of the ischiocrural and fascia lata that is needed to help slow down the body's fall. This, in combination with no knee recurvatum, puts all the stress on the left hip, with known consequences for Lincecum, which resulted that he began to move differently after 2012, deviating from these natural tendencies, which led to problems with velocity and command, and ultimately resulting in his hip injury. Unfortunately, after 2012, due to modifications of his mechanics, he ended up in his pitching delivery as an anterior muscle chain dominant athlete adduction or crossed legs, where he normally should be in abduction or legs never crossed, which again created additional stress and avoidable wear and tear on that left hip joint. Anterior muscle chain dominant athletes are not allowed to turn until their feet come off the ground after the rebound, as you clearly see in 2009. If he keeps contact with the ground like he did in 2013 and his body's center of gravity low, the torsions and ligaments in his leg will gradually but irrevocably break down. In the motor skill group family, to which Lincecum belongs, it's normally the left leg that is affected. It is worth noting that it was Tim's left hip that experienced significant injury. So by knowing his right motor skill group from the get-go, this injury could have been prevented. As a summary, we can say that the reason for Tim Lincecum's shift in mechanics and release point is unknown to me. It could have been due to various reasons, such as coaches working on his mechanics, trying to clean up or fix his mechanics, or attempting to change his numbers, data or pitch shaping. However, the result was that Lincecum not only became a different pitcher, but he also became a different mover. From 2011 to 2012, he started moving in a way that was opposite to his individual natural motor preferences. This led to a decline in his performance, loss of velocity, lack of command, and ultimately a hip surgery. Thanks for visiting #BaseballActionID. We value your interest and hope the information was helpful in improving your understanding of baseball performances. Stay tuned and updated by visiting our website or emailing us.